My name is Felicity, and my life once seemed like a fairy tale. I was 35 years old when I went through a divorce that blindsided me. I never saw it coming, not in a million years. My marriage had always felt like the happiest chapter of my life, until it wasn't. I met Axel through a mutual friend. He was charming, good-looking, and captivating in every way. We clicked instantly, and after 3 years of bliss, we decided to get married. But as I look back now, I realize that the surface of our relationship hid a lot of cracks. Cracks I was too naive to see. Axel's parents, Millie and Tiago, were a problem from the start. Our first meeting was supposed to be simple, a dinner at their house. But when I arrived, I noticed only 3 plates on the table, just for them and Axel. I didn't know how to react, but I played it off. Their cold reception felt like a warning, but I ignored it. The evening was uncomfortable. Millie and Tiago made no effort to make me feel welcome. Axel said nothing, leaving me to fend for myself. I waited, hoping he would defend me, but he didn't. As the night ended, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next day, I confronted Axel. "We need to talk about last night," I said. He sighed, rolling his eyes. "Can't we talk about this later?" he muttered, making it clear that he thought I was overreacting. But I wasn't going to let it go. "You didn't defend me," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. His reply was cold, dismissive. It wasn't necessary. For a week, I gave him the silent treatment, hoping for an apology that never came. Axel acted like nothing had happened. I was angry, hurt, and, in a way, I began to feel the first pangs of isolation. We continued on with our relationship, but there was an unspoken rule: avoid his parents at all costs. The tension remained. I thought it would all go away after the wedding, but that was far from the truth. Our wedding reception was supposed to be a celebration, but Axel's parents, again, had to ruin it. When we mentioned our plans for a honeymoon in Hawaii, they suggested a lavish trip to Paris, paid for by them, but only if they could join us. The thought of spending more time with them made me uncomfortable, but Axel had already agreed without consulting me. When I tried to talk to Axel about it, he dismissed me. "Stop overthinking it," he said. His nonchalance stung more than I could admit. I agreed reluctantly, thinking maybe I was just being too sensitive. We arrived in Paris, but the trip wasn't the dream I had hoped for. Millie and Tiago's behavior didn't improve. In fact, it worsened. They criticized my clothes, my weight, my choices. And Axel? He laughed along with them, oblivious to the hurt piling up inside me. By the second week in Paris, I had had enough. Axel had become increasingly distant, and his parents seemed to go out of their way to make me feel inferior. The final straw came when I went to ask Axel for my plane ticket to return home, only to find out he didn't have it. When I asked Millie and Tiago about it, they casually told me they had forgotten to buy it. They suggested I just buy one for myself. In the midst of the chaos, Axel remained silent. I was left stranded in a foreign country with no way to get home. Axel didn't even care. I confronted him one last time, but all he said was, "They paid for the trip. I can't just leave them." As I watched Axel pack his bags without a second glance in my direction, something inside me broke. I was on my own in a foreign country, abandoned by the person I thought I could trust the most. But this wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. I had always suspected that Axel's financial stability came from his parents. But now, with him unwilling to pay his way, it was time to take control. I reached out to my best friend, Abby, for help. Her husband, Max, was a property lawyer, and I needed him on my side. With Max's legal expertise, we formulated a plan. Axel had transferred the house mortgage to me months ago when he was overwhelmed by debt. Now, I had been paying the mortgage on my own for far too long. It was time to take back what was mine. Max explained that since I had been making all the payments, I was legally entitled to take full control of the house. With Abby's and Max's support, I started the process of evicting Axel and his parents from the property. I wasn't to let them continue taking advantage of me. I knew Axel and his parents were on a layover in Turkey. With 35 hours to kill in Istanbul, I knew I had the perfect window to execute my plan. It was time to make them regret ever crossing me. I flew home, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me still loved Axel, but the deeper part of me, one that had been mistreated and taken for granted, was ready to fight back. I cried on the flight, but I knew this was the beginning of reclaiming my power. When I landed, I immediately checked on Axel's flight status. They still had 3 hours until departure. I wasted no time. I drove straight to Millie and Tiago's house, using the spare key they had given me. This house was mine now, and I was going to make sure they knew it. With Abby and Max by my side, we finalized the paperwork to remove Axel's name from the house and file for the eviction. It felt surreal, but I was finally taking control of my life. I wasn't the naive woman who had once been in love with Axel. I had become someone stronger, someone unstoppable. When Axel finally returned from his trip, he was shocked to find out what I had done. He stood in the doorway, confused and desperate. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "This is my house now," I said firmly, handing him the divorce papers. "You and your parents need to leave." Axel tried to plead, but was too late. I had already made up my mind. "You can't do this," he muttered, his face twisted in disbelief. "I already have," I replied coldly, "and if you don't leave, I'll call police." I watched as Axel and his parents left, defeated. They had no choice but to leave the house they thought was their own. It was the sweetest revenge, and it brought me the closure I needed. It wasn't about making them suffer. It was about reclaiming my dignity. Axel tried to drag out the divorce, hoping to win, but the legal fees quickly drained his funds. He had nothing left to fight with. Meanwhile, Millie and Tiago had come out of retirement to pay for a place of their own. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. I had taken control of my life and walked away from a toxic relationship. Axel and his parents were struggling, but I had moved on. I wasn't the same woman who had blindly followed Axel. I was stronger, wiser, and free. Months passed, and I started to rebuild my life. I made new friends, embraced new opportunities, and found happiness within myself. I was no longer tied to a man who had manipulated me. I had learned to trust myself again. Axel tried to contact me a few times, but I ignored his calls. He had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. I wasn't about to go back to the life of silence and neglect that I had endured for so long. The road to healing wasn't easy, but I found strength in knowing that I had made the right choice. I had let go of the past and embraced my future. Every day felt like a new victory, and I couldn't wait to see where my life would take me next. Axel and his parents never found the comfort they once had. They were forced to live with the consequences of their actions. And I had found peace. The closure I needed had come in the form of freedom. The freedom to live life on my own terms. In the end, I realized that my greatest revenge wasn't about hurting Axel or his parents. It was about me. It was about reclaiming my life, my strength, and my happiness. And that, to me, was the sweetest revenge of all.